joining us on the phone. By the way, spoiler alert. I have to put that out right now. But Nancy Schultz, talking about the movie Foxcatcher. Nancy, is it hard to explain who you are without completely spoiling the movie?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think just the wife of Dave Schultz, Olympic wrestler.
Yeah, Dave Schultz, amazing Olympic wrestler. Dave and Mark Schultz, brothers, fantastic. In the movie, Mark, the brother, is played by Channing Tatum, and Nancy's husband, Dave, played by Mark Ruffalo, who, by the way, incredible. I mean, it should be an honor to you. Like, obviously, I don't know Dave, but watching Mark portray him, I just thought, man, Dave seems just like the coolest, nicest, most awesome dude, and I'm sure you probably agree.
Yeah, you're right. The word honor. I'm so honored. Mark just became Dave Schultz. I mean, he spent a lot of time. He started wrestling, 9 months before filming. Started with Dave's Olympic teammates and World Championship teammates. So people that not only knew wrestling but knew Dave started coaching him 9 months before. And then, he obviously spent lots of time and energy going. We went over home movies. He wore Dave's real glasses in the film. I mean, he took this role of becoming Dave Schultz very seriously, and our whole family just thanks him so much for the way he portrayed Dave's character.
Yeah, for those of us that aren't really familiar with with the whole story, and it was kind of before my time when it happened. So watching the film, it's all kind of new to me, and then just seeing, I just really related with that character and thought, man, Dave just seems like such a cool guy. And I want to know how honest the movie is, in your opinion. Like, when you watch it, I mean, and you see Dave on the screen, is Dave's journey in the film, is how he is portrayed, does that all seem pretty accurate?
Yeah, I think that's what I look at in the film. Obviously, the film takes liberties with time. They squish time in the film. It almost appears as Dave gets killed in 1988, and actually it wasn't until 1996 that Dave was murdered. There's certain things, but I think if you look at the essence of the characters come through. John DuPont was awkward, arrogant, powerful at the same time, lonely and confused, and mental health issues. I think Steve Carell, you feel that coming through the character. Channing Tatum, is an unbelievable athlete, which Mark Schultz was. You see his walk, his tortured relationship with DuPont comes through in the film. And then Dave, like I said before, Mark just did an amazing job. The way he rubs his beard, the way he scratches his head, I mean, down to the writing with his left hand, and I mean, the details that Mark went through are amazing.
Yeah, it's just an absolutely wonderful film too. And so I want to.
And then I was going to say too is the Foxcatcher room, the training center, the outside of the training center, the house that we lived in. It's just all really perfectly accurate.
That's awesome. I mean, that's so cool. I mean, because obviously it would be horrible to, have such an amazing story told and have a bunch of errors. So it's nice that they did do it such justice. I want to know, getting into the timeline of when this all happened, what was it like with Dave? And so obviously, Mark, what's the story with how this all happened with him going to Foxcatcher Farms? Like with your family,
in the film, it shows Dave and Mark, Mark and our family there at the same time. And in actuality, Mark was only there about a year. He was there from 87 to 88. Then he was gone for a year before we ever came there. So I think one of the things that's missing in the film that it helps to understand is that, which we have a documentary coming out. We started a film in documentary in 2007. Great director John Greenhall, who's made films for HBO and Independent Film Channel, is creating a documentary right now that should be out in the next 3 or 4 months. So I'll keep you updated on that. But for the accuracy. But when Mark was there, the training program was just starting. There was only a few athletes there, so the training situation wasn't really good. John DuPont had a lot more control and was there every day. By the time we came in 1989, the training center was large and thriving. It was 5 sports, which you don't see in the film. It was, horseback, it was equestrian, swimming, triathlon, pentathlon, and all those. So it was a big training center with lots of athletes. And for wrestling, it's important that you have a lot of training partners.
Yeah.
Dave had a quote, steel sharpens steel. And so for wrestling, you need, 3 or 4 guys at your caliber in order to train with. So by the time we came, that was in existence. So it's a much different estate than when Mark was there by himself.
And what was Mr. DuPont like, just as a human being? I mean, like conversations with him, meetings with him. What was he like?
Well, I think for the most part, pardon me, he was lonely. He had been raised on that estate by himself. His brothers and sisters were gone by the time he was born. He was like 11 or 12 years younger. He lived with his mom. He once told us the story, that he ate alone in his room till he was 12 years old. So I think he was very maladjusted. He probably had mental health issues from the time he was young.
Yeah.
And then as time went on, he exacerbated all the problems he had with cocaine and alcohol. So he just, really started to come unraveled towards the end of our stay. Unfortunately, we didn't think that John was dangerous. We knew that he was odd and he had addiction issues, so we were trying to get him to go help, but he was afraid. And then the last, I think, key to the puzzle was that the Olympics were looming, 3 or 4 months away were the Olympic trials, and you can ask any Olympic athlete, they just don't want to take time out to do anything different when you're just 3 or 4 months away from Olympic trials. So I think, all of us were just waiting, hoping John would get better, and also thinking, well, if he's not, then we'll just leave after the Olympic Games are over. And unfortunately, in January, he came apart and just showed up at our house and killed him.
Wow. I mean, it's such a powerful and, weird, one of those stories where, like you said, you didn't think he was dangerous. The guy's a little off and a little odd, but of course you don't think that he's going to act out in the way he did, but so horrible and powerful. Recently, I've been reading that Mark, who used to enjoy the film, recently, now he's kind of upset with the film. Have you talked to him in the past few weeks?
I haven't talked to him. I've actually been out of the country, and I just got back when we went to the Golden Globes. But, I have nothing but compassion. I can't imagine poor Mark, and here he is. They're showing some of the worst part of his life, in a film, and it's got to be hard. And then this film, then you have reviews and critics, and Mark's not an actor or a director. He's not used to having his life picked apart, and it has to feel like someone's criticizing or evaluating your life. And I think it's easy to see why it would be quite a roller coaster of emotions for him going through the process of watching this film.
Yeah, that's got to be true, too. I didn't even really think about that. It's probably, like you said, roller coaster of emotions, because he did support it early on. So it's nice to know that he at least understands that it's a good movie. And then, like you said, he's reacting more, not to the film itself necessarily, but to all the feedback and criticisms and, opinions of people that are not associated with the film and are just
I'm extremely compassionate. I can't imagine walking in his shoes. And, when you hear some of the reviews and the criticisms of it, or even the positives, it's just got to be, like I said, a roller coaster of emotions, changing the way you feel every day as you read different things about your life.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said too, who can really relate to that? Such an unexplainable kind of thing to have happen in your life. And what's happening now? I know you're doing a lot, Nancy, to carry on Dave's legacy, and kind of fill us in on before we do that. Yeah, good question here. I'm talking about everybody else. How do you think Sienna Miller did portraying you in the film?
Sienna did a lovely job. She is such a wonderful person, and I got to hold her baby Marlowe whenever she was shooting, so that was a big plus too. So
that's great.
She was great. She was very, very sympathetic to my story and my pain. She asked a lot of questions about how we held hands, about how I, would interact with Mark, how I spoke with Mark, how I interacted with Dave. So they were very, very open to receiving information about how life was in back in the time period. So I loved working with her. How proud could you be having Sienna Miller play you?
Yeah, exactly. What a cool honor too. But as I was asking before, what kind of explain to people what you've done since Dave's passing, and what you've done to carry on the legacy. And you've been
originally when Dave died, I started the Dave Schultz Wrestling Club, and that was to fund athletes that had been wrestling for Foxcatcher. The Olympic Training Center gave me a donation. I formed a nonprofit, and what was supposed to be a 5-month existence turned into a 12-year project. So I did the Dave Schultz Wrestling Club for 12 years. I served on the National Hall of Fame, on the United States Wrestling Board, and several other positions within wrestling. But after about 12 years, it was time to kind of step back. I had my kids becoming teenagers, which you think you're going to get relieved, but actually that's always a turbulent time. So I stepped away from wrestling for a little while, turned my attention back to my kids, and in 2007 I was asked to work on a documentary film, but DuPont was still alive. I still had kids at home, so I postponed it. I really was a little hesitant about having a film make DuPont more famous. But in 2010, DuPont died in prison, and director John Greenhall called me and asked if I would assist in helping him with the film he was making. And so that's really, since 2010, I've been pretty much working full-time on the documentary process, and then, of course, with Foxcatcher for a couple years. And the documentary should be coming out in the next 3 or 4 months, and I'm really proud of the work that Greenhall did on that, and I'm looking forward to sharing that film, which has actually the real life and real footage and real people that were there, and a lot of real footage of DuPont and Dave together and the Foxcatcher lifestyle.
It'll be fantastic. I mean, especially for people like me that, like I said, I was kind of young when this all happened, so I wasn't super, knowledgeable about all this story. And now looking back, I'm really intrigued by all of it. So watching the movie, I'm excited to see more. And like you said, kind of see the real side of everything. So I think it's nice that the film comes out. You can kind of get drawn into the story, and then the documentary will come out, and we can all learn the truth.
I think they play very well together, and I'm looking forward to sharing the real story with people.
And how are the kids doing, Nancy? How are your kids now? Everything? Have they seen the film?
My kids are great. My kids are fantastic. They both live within about 10 minutes of me. Alexander actually is launching a startup company in Palo Alto, California this Thursday. It's called Complete. It's an app. And Danny is an animal person and has a pet sitting business in Woodside, California. And so they're both thriving and doing well and completely supported and loved by the big wrestling family that their dad left behind.
That's awesome. And do they enjoy the film? Have they got a chance to see it?
They do, and they were on the set. They both played some little cameo roles in the film, and have gotten to be very close with Ruffalo and Bennett Miller, and they've been involved in the process, and they do like the film, and they like the people. I think more than anything, they just like the people that were involved.
That's awesome. What a great, like at this point now, finally, kind of a nice ending to such a horribly tragic story. And it was like you said, roller coaster describes it all of, Dave's life, up so high and then just such a crash. And now to be able to come back out of it all with this fantastic film, the documentary coming, the kids doing all right, you happy. You're getting married soon. Congratulations.
I am. I'm getting married in May. Thank you very much to my wonderful fiance, Scott Vitangeli. I'm getting married in May out here in California.
That's amazing. So just so much happy. I'm happy for you now, and I'm so glad it's kind of turned around and become so positive, and also happy that you took the time for us. So Nancy Schultz, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate your time.
Anytime. Check out Foxcatcher, and look forward to the Foxcatcher documentary. And Nancy, thanks again for taking the time, and best of luck with everything.
Have a good day.
The Big J Show. Weekday mornings from 6 till 10 on Billings' #1 hit music station, Hot 101.9.